As an outsider looking into the sport of athletics, I find with horror that to me it appears to be run by a bunch of incompetents. Is that your experience?
Well, that's a very interesting view, and if you can see it on the outside, what do you think I feel on the inside? But you know, I guess incompetent would be the word on the outside, and I'm trying to think of a word that would be more appropriate. Probably Neanderthal. That's it, Neanderthal. From the inside. It's really sad because track and field is a wonderful sport. It's very inexpensive for kids. They don't have to buy anything but a pair of shoes. It's healthy. It's nonviolent. It's a wonderful sport to watch. It's easy to televise because you can pick and choose the events that are demographically strong in different areas. And it's easy to build up people because there's so many different things to look at. But they found a way to bungle it all the way through, and it's really sad because the sport is on a big decline worldwide, and it should be in a growth spurt like many other sports, especially in America.
Now, why is that?
Well, because the word incompetent creeps back up. I mean, they've had basically the same people with an amateur mentality for many years, and I've always thought that attrition would work quicker, but apparently we have to thank our doctors for keeping it going because they're keeping these people alive. It's just sad because a lot of people that are in these positions don't want to ever retire, you know. But we need to change the philosophy of the sport, or the sport's going to die. You cannot expect to do everything different from the people that are successful and be successful. There are messages from other professional sports to be learned, and our sport somehow has not learned them.
Carl, I said in introducing you that Runner's World rated you as the greatest athlete in 100 years. If anybody's going to make a change, I suggest to you it's going to be you.
Well, I've tried. There are two things that came out of that. It was interesting because, first of all, I've tried many years, and even a lot of things and problems that were happening now I talked about 6, 7, and sometimes 10 years ago. And I'm supposedly, I don't care about the sport because, you know, you're making all the money, you don't, but supposedly I don't care about my sport. That when I've made all of this money and been successful and have loved to compete at for many years. But also, that day was interesting because they had a big banquet in New York City. And I met Sir Roger Bannister and all the wonderful people over the years. And that was really the first time and only time I've ever had a perspective of what my competitive career has been like. You know, and that's, I've always thought, well, I've run, I compete, I've won medals, but that was the first time to be in the same room with those people and say, hey, you're amongst these. It was pretty amazing.
Okay, now being amongst those, can you make changes? Or are the blazers and the types of people that have been hanging around athletics for so long, are they so entrenched that even Carl Lewis can't change them?
Well, I've tried for 15 years, and my efforts, I hope that I will leave some positive things, but I have absolutely no interest whatsoever to be involved in the politics of this sport after this year. Actually, after last year, my goals as far as track and field concerned will be specifically to work with kids from high school level and down, whether it's through appearances, through clinics, through talking, through motivating, or whatever it can do. I love that part of it, and that's fulfilling to me. But I don't believe there is a number we can use to quantify how little interest I have in being involved at the level above that, collegiate or international.
I don't like using words like role model because I think we're all our own role models to some extent, and perhaps your parents are your number one role model. But you are, in many people's eyes, an absolute hero. So how do you feel about someone like Dennis Rodman?
Well, I think that it's a commentary on our overall society. I think things are cyclical. 10 years ago, Dennis would have never made it. People would have shunned him. Now he's a hit, but in 5 years from now, people will shun that same activity. It's a sad commentary in many cases on our society that people want to look at the things that he does. I think that first of all, if he was not a great basketball player, obviously he wouldn't have the chance. So it's kind of a two-sided thing. He has a discipline, he works hard, he goes out and gets the rebounds, doesn't care if he scores 6 points or not. I mean, you look at the basic principles of his play, he's the ultimate team player. But obviously he has other problems that he cannot control. So I think that we need to balance in society and promote the things that people do that are right, but also you know, tell our kids that, look, that's something they want to do. We can't stop someone from acting the way they do, but we should be strong and disciplined on the things they do wrong and encourage the right types of things. Because it's hard to tell kids what not to do if they see it happening every day and no one is disciplined for it.
You must have been conscious that the eyes of the world were on you all the time. Did that put extra pressure on Carl Lewis?
Well, a little bit. I mean, you grow into that thing. I mean, people ask me, what's it like to be famous all the time or be seen? It's something no one's born for. I don't care if your parents were famous. You're still not born to be that way. There's no gene, you know. You have to learn that, and it's something I've had to grow into, and I've gotten used to. There are times when it's great, it's fun, it's wonderful. There are times when I'm tired and just want to go home and lay down. But it's something you grow into and understand it, and 90% of the time it's very positive, it's uplifting, and it's something that's very easy to deal with.
Tell me about your parents. How big an influence on you were they?
Well, my parents were the most important influence for me. I was fortunate to come from an environment. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My parents were very involved in the civil rights movement, whether through the bus strike where they were drivers, or marching on the streets and being hosed like we saw those horrible pictures of the Birmingham police and fire department doing. They were a part of that, and they instilled that same vision in me. They said, go out and do what you think is right, stand up for it, and be prepared to sacrifice. So my parents were the most influential people in my life. And then being teachers, education was very, very important. So I couldn't have been the person I was without my parents being there for me all the way through, and both of them, and that was very fortunate.
Given that background, though, you haven't really courted the same type of thing that the guys did at Mexico with the signal at the end of the 100 meters. You've kept away from that.
Well, I believe that the most important and defining access to growth in our community, the African American community, is two things: through education and economic growth. I've tried to instill a strong educational background, articulate words, talk about kids learning and understanding the issues, go out and vote for the president that you want to and vote on the issues that are important to you, but at the same time utilize that to encourage yourself to become stronger economically, not getting $10 and running out and spending it, but growing economically. No group of people in anywhere are going to have equality until they have economic equality. So I've tried to instill that. We know that there's racism in the world. It's always going to be. We're not going to change that. But if we can get economic growth in our community, then and make that the equalizer, then people will be willing to sit down at tables and negotiate more freely.
In sport, though, in the United States, Afro-Americans have really come through. You look at the lineup in the Green Bay Packers, you look at the San Francisco 49ers, you watch Jerry Rice, and good heavens above, where's all the white men?
Well, they're out there somewhere. They're out there running the damn teams. That's where they are.
They own the teams.
They own them. That's what we have to do next. We have to start owning some of these teams. But, I mean, I think that that's happened because sports became one of the first entities to open up and allow everyone to compete, whether it's African Americans or Asians or Hispanics and Central Americans. They opened up, so therefore we have a more equal situation. But here again, we have to polarize the economics of that and continue to grow and get involved in ownership and everything else. That's where it comes back to when you're really on equal ground, not just the players, but also administrators, coaches, which is happening, and owners, which will happen in the future.
We're seeing a young man coming through at the moment who may become another Carl Lewis. Different sport, but same type of image, same type of appearance. I'm talking Tiger Woods. If you had some advice for someone like Tiger Woods just starting his career, what would it be?
First thing would be to surround yourself with people that honestly care about you first. That if somehow you woke up one morning and you were no longer you, they'd still be there. That's the most important aspect. Secondly, take your time. Make sure you do things you're comfortable with at a young age. People understand you're only 21. So if you can't have the schedule that someone like myself has or act like someone like myself, I've been around and I'm 35 years old. So take your time, take it easy, surround yourself with people that care, and do what you really enjoy so that people can see you having fun, and then you'll mature into the other things.
The entrepreneurial skills that are shown in other sports, particularly in American hockey, used to be in baseball, but they seem to have lost their way. But American football, is that the type of thing that is needed in track?
What's needed in track and field is just a defining nature of professionalism. You know, I'm a professional athlete, and I've been my entire career. But the sport still tries to say we're amateur. They still list themselves as amateur. You need to have professionals whose overall goal is to grow their sport, to make it bigger as a whole, and understand that the athletes have to prosper as well, or it's not going to grow. See, track and field still wants to treat the athletes like amateurs and run it like amateurs. Whereas other sports realize we're going to have to pay these athletes because they're performing if we're all going to become better. That's the real problem we have now. We do not have professional people running and understanding that if everyone is happy, everyone prospers.
In his outstanding book, James Michener wrote On Sport. He said that athletes at the end of the day, many of them don't know what to do with themselves. They have their moment in the sun early on, and then when retirement comes, they're lost. How are you going to handle retirement?
For me, it's going to be probably easier than I ever imagined to be, but I can't say it's going to be easy. I don't really know what it'll be like to not have to worry about going to a track meet again, so I can't imagine. But I think that the thing you have to do is prepare yourself for the second stage of your life, and I've always financially tried to do that, and I'm set financially. I'm in a home I enjoy that I love to be in. I'm in an environment, my family situation around me is fun. So all of those things are very comfortable for me. So now the next phase of my life can be focused on doing what I want to do without having the pressure of having to be successful. And we're mapping that out now, and I want to stay involved in physical fitness. I want to stay involved with kids, my charity work, but also from a business side, we're going into acting more theatrical as a focus. So those are two things that I'd like to do. I'm not under pressure to be the best at anything. I've done that once. So if I can just be happy, have some parts, work with kids, do my charities, stay physically fit, then the rest of my life will be wonderful.
Being an athlete, have you been an entertainer, an actor?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely been an entertainer. That's where a lot of people in track have not liked about the things that I do, because I understood that you couldn't go to track meets, run a meet, and go home and expect to be world known or expect to command the attention. I realized that it was more than that. It was the way you looked, the way you acted, giving more attention, doing press conferences before meets, spending the time afterwards, shaking hands with the crowd, waving. I mean, these are things that you understand you have to do. And for me, some of it was a lot of hard work. All of it went from school, and some of it was just natural and by accident. I didn't cut my hair on a flat top in '84 on purpose. That just happened by accident, and it became a huge issue. I always wanted to dress well when I was growing up. I always wanted nice clothes, you know. So that was easy for me. So it was a combination of luck, of being in the right place at the right time, but also driven by the idea that I wanted to make things bigger than they've ever been before.
Finally, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? That's a question people ask me, and the main thing is that I guess someone who tried to change, elicit change, tried to make a difference in the sport, what I'm in, but also someone that didn't try to walk down the same line. I never tried to do that. I always tried to make a difference. I've always tried to do the events that I thought would be interesting. I've always tried to do what I thought was right, and I've never compromised on my basic principles. So I hope that that's what's remembered. You know, we're going to remember the medals. But if I didn't have those principles in the beginning, I would never have had all the medals. So that's why I think that's more important.
Thanks for coming down and being with us. We'll remember you even more distinctly. You've been an absolute champion in all sorts of ways, on the track and off it, and I think that's equally important. Well done.
Thank you very much.
We'll have another Herald Card Deaker profile for you, same time next week.